عالهوا سوا طول ما بيبعدنا المكان.
سوا عالهوا من ميشيغان وواشنطن.
من يوم اللي اتكون يا وطني الموت كنا سوا، ليوم اللي بيعتك يا وطني الغيب رح نبقى سوا.
من ميشيغان on WNZK 690 AM ومن واشنطن on WDMV 700 AM.
سوا في الهوا والهمين الداوية،
سوا عالهوا يأتيكم عبر أثير إذاعة
صباح الخير أمريكا.
لما نكون سوا يا حياتي سوا، دايبين بالهوا ما تعد الساعة، ما تقوليلي روح أنا ما بدي روح، بعيونك مشلوح ليلة ليلة. أنا حبك برتاح كتير، أنا شوقي لعينيك كبير. أنا حبك برتاح كتير، أنا شوقي لعينيك كبير. ما بدي سرب بكير، خليني حبك انتي وحبك بشتاق ليكي، ناموا برفق عايديكي، غفيني بغفوة عينيكي وخلينا سوا. انتي وحبك بشتاق ليكي، ناموا برفق عايديكي، غفيني بغفوة عينيكي وخلينا سوا.
يمكنكم الآن متابعة برنامج سوا على الهواء على قناة ميوزك لايف عبر الديش نتورك شانل 633. البرنامج يبث لمستمعين يوم الثلاثاء الساعة 8 صباحا حسب التوقيت الشرقي للولايات المتحدة في ميشيغان وتوليدو وأوهايو ووينزر كندا على الموجة المتوسطة WNZK 690 AM، ولمستمعين في مناطق واشنطن وفرجينيا وميريلاند على الموجة المتوسطة WDMV 700 AM. يمكنكم الاستماع للبرنامج عبر الاتصال من أي هاتف على الرقم 702-489-0120. يتلقى البرنامج اتصالاتكم مباشرة من داخل الولايات المتحدة على الهاتف رقم 248-557-3300. الإضافة عبر سكايب US Arab Radio. للاستماع للبودكاست ushammedia.com.
صباح الخير ليلى، are we on the air؟ صباح الخير، good morning everybody. تاريخ اليوم هو 1 أبريل 2014. يا أهلا وسهلا بكل المستمعين. نحن اليوم عنا ضيفة عزيزة علينا، المير بريندا لورنس، اللي هي مرشحة لل14th Congressional District هون في ولاية ميشيغان. رح تكون ضيفتنا لمدة ساعة. كتير من المستمعين بيعرفوا المير بريندا لورنس وبيحبوها، وإذا ما كانوا من سكان البلدة متعرفين عليها أو سامعين عنها. بالسماح من الجميع رح ننتقل للغة الأمريكانية اليوم، للغة الإنجليزية. وأي شخص بحب يتصل يا أهلا وسهلا فيه على 248-557-3300. Mayor, good morning.
Good morning.
I had to make the introduction in Arabic to our listeners, introducing our beautiful and very distinguished guest today, Mayor Brenda Lawrence, a candidate for the 14th district congressional for the 14th congressional district. Excuse me. I apologize, Mayor, to you and the listeners. My voice is gone. I have been sick for days now. You are with us for the whole hour. The number here to call is 248-557-3300. And before we take calls, I just want to welcome you, Mayor. I want to welcome Chris, who is also here with us. Hello, Chris. Mayor, thank you. I know how very busy you are. I want to listen and I want to talk very little. But before I listen, I just want to, One of the most popular mayors I have ever met is the mayor of Southfield. What is your popularity rating? Like 100% or something?
No.
Yeah,
It's
just
pretty
about.
high, though. It's
Yeah, it's about 100%. You are so beloved. You are so loved by so many people. The city of Southfield is a thriving city with so many residents and so many businesses, and you are so beloved by the people who work in the city, such as myself, and the people who live in the city. Mayor, before we start, I wanna. Your story is so inspiring. Your story is so inspiring to anybody who will listen, and your story is so inspiring to women, but not just to women, to men and women alike. And I wanna tell them, you know, a little bit about your how you got to be mayor and what you did for a living.
Yeah.
I find it to be nothing short of fascinating, and I want the listeners to have the benefit of knowing your story.
Okay. Good morning, and thank you so much. Jemima, you have been such an amazing woman, and when I had the pleasure to meet you, your warmth and your commitment and your hard work standards has really been a person that I respect, and that says a lot, because there's a lot of people you meet, but there's few people you meet in your life that you can actually respect. And today, to be on the show with you is amazing. I want you to feel better, too.
Thank you, Mayor. I will be. I'm going to the doctor.
Good.
So don't worry.
Good. I'm excited to be here as a candidate for the 14th Congressional District. I have, just to give you a little snapshot of my life, I'm the youngest of four. My mother died when I was 3 years old, raised by my grandparents and my dad, and graduated from high school when I was 16, and received a full ride to the University of Detroit. I grew up in Detroit, and I had no idea that we were as poor as we were until I had to do my financial aid for school, and I could not believe that we were living off of such a small amount. And this is one of the values that were still instilled in me, is that money does not define your quality of life. To give you an example, I had a home-cooked meal from scratch every day. I didn't realize, I teased my family and I, we kind of laughed and said we didn't realize we were vegetarians until we became adults, because we only had meat one day a week.
Wow.
But everything was prepared from scratch. My grandmother was a wonderful cook. And so she also was a seamstress. So our clothes were always very well tailored and ironed and whatever, although we didn't go to the grocery store to buy clothes. But we always had nice things to wear. And so my grandmother, who never graduated from high school, had a very, very high commitment to education. And it was unwavering. You will be educated, and you will. She taught us constantly and reinforced the value of education. And so here's a woman who had a very, very religious, strong base and belief in God. And, you know, growing up in my childhood was right in the middle of the civil rights movement. And my grandmother was raised in the South. And I watched her cry watching dogs being sicked on protesters in the hoses. And, you know, I didn't know anything about a bathroom having white only on it. And she would share that with me, and sometimes she would cry. But she taught me constantly. She said there are good people and there are bad people. And that whether you're good or bad had nothing to do with your race. It had nothing to do with the amount of money that you made, that we all make decisions. The one thing that she instilled in me that I absolutely now understand is that there is no one on this earth that's better than I am. And that I was put here for a reason. I should be helping people. And that there is no one in this on this earth that's less than me. And I should never look down at someone. And if I'm in a situation where someone is down and out, I was put there to help them. So I have a very high standard of serving and making a difference in this world.
And it's her belief that nobody's better than you and you're not better than anybody. Is that because we're all children of God?
Yes, absolutely. Her faith and belief in God was that we're all created equally, and that
and in the image and likeness of God.
Sweetheart.
May I just comment on one thing you said, Mayor? That when you're faced with somebody who is less fortunate than you, she instilled in you the belief that you should serve in one way or another.
Yes.
You should help, and one can always help, right?
Always.
With a hug, with a kiss, with a prayer, with money, with services, with anything. Yeah.
And you know, there is. I will tell you one story. I was visiting this program for girls who had committed a crime, and they were put into this special program to rehabilitate them. And these were young girls. And at this graduation of this program, there was this young lady who became very emotional. And she was kind of standing at the side, and she started weeping. And so I walked over to her, and I said, "Are you okay?" And she looked at me. She said, "Oh, I'm fine." I said, "Is there anything I can do?" I said, "This is a great day." I said, "Are you sad? Are you happy?" I said, "Because I'm very proud of you." And at the end of the program, she walked over to me and she said, "Thank you. No one asked, am I okay? And you cared enough to ask." So I made a difference in this simply by caring enough to say, "Are you okay?" And
nobody had ever done that. She touched her life. You changed her.
And so it's not always about, like you said, it's not about buying someone a dress. It's not about
giving them money.
Yes, it's about
not
caring
always.
And, you know, trying to make a difference. But I work for the Postal Service, and many people don't know this. It was hilarious. I met this businessman because I became elected mayor while I was still working a full-time job. And I worked my way up in the Postal Service. I started as a letter carrier, and I ended up being a manager for the state of Michigan.
That's so cute. How many years did you work for the
30
post
years,
office?
30 years.
Which post office, might I ask?
Well, I worked in
I know the one that's on 11 and Luscious.
Yes.
Did you work there?
I worked there. That's where I carried mail. No, I'm sorry. I carried mail in Royal Oak. I worked midnights as a clerk at the one in South Hill. And I worked downtown. I worked in we had the district office over the whole state of Michigan. And I covered the whole state of Michigan, so I worked in the town center for a while.
All right.
But it was hilarious. I was visiting this businessman, and he said, I said, so after our meeting, I said, well, I have to get back to work. He said, oh, you going back to City Hall? I said, no, I have to go back to the. He said, work? Where do you work? I said, I work for the post office. He said, oh, my goodness, you're like Batman. No one knows. You come out of the secret cave.
That is, what a beautiful analogy. Post office by night and mayor by day.
So it was, I was proud to be able to.
But that's a big
service,
thing to become the mayor of Southfield.
Yes. First woman and first African American ever to be the mayor of the city. And for women who are listening, I want you to know that so often we do not see ourselves in certain roles and positions. And I was elected in 2001, and today in 2014 there's still women who are first. And I really encourage women to take your skills and your leadership. We need women to step into those roles. And right now in Congress, we are in this country, we are 52% of the population.
Women are.
Women are. However, we're only 18% of Congress. and the laws and the policies, our Constitution, and everything that we value in the United States. Every single day in Congress, those issues are being debated, and our voice is not there. So I'm excited. I'm energized to run for Congress. I'm energized. I started my career in politics and on the school board, and that was because of my children. You know, as a mother, my grandmother was day to day. That was her responsibility, my education. And when my children were going to school, to me,
a son and a daughter, I believe.
A son and a daughter, yeah.
Yes. And one granddaughter.
An amazing
one
granddaughter.
Very beloved granddaughter.
Yes.
Yeah.
I tell everyone being a grandma is so much better than being a mom.
Yes.
And so when I when I was involved and wanted to make a difference, I continuously had to go to this board. And I said, well, I want to be on that board because I'm tired of having to go to them. I want to make a difference. And and women, I did what typically women, I go like, oh, I'm not qualified. Oh my goodness. Elected office, I don't know. And it was a man who encouraged me and said, what we need on the school board is someone who cares and someone who's going to be committed and want to make a difference in our children's lives. And you meet all that criteria. Please put your name. Please run. And I ran. And I won. I was so excited to serve. And that began to open my eyes and giving me the experience and the base that brings me to today of having the courage and having the conviction and the confidence to say, I want to go to Congress and I want to serve the people of the 14th District.
Mayor, allow me to remind the listeners that we're spending the whole hour with you, Mayor Brenda Lawrence of Southfield, the beloved Mayor Brenda Lawrence of Southfield, who has 100%, I think, popularity rating in her city, and we are broadcasting out of her city here, Mayor.
Yes.
And who is running for the 14th Congressional District, who's running for U.S. Congress. Mm-hmm. The number to call here, and we will start taking your calls, is 248-557-3300. 248-557-3300. Jim will take any calls that come in, and we're with you for the whole hour. Mm-hmm. What an inspiring story, Mayor, from you stated your story, a poor family in Detroit who had meat for only maybe enough for once a week. Being raised by a very godly grandmother, yes, who put God first and education second, if I can paraphrase, working in the post office, going on a full-ride scholarship to the University of Detroit. Yes, academic scholarship. Having 2 children, working at the post office for 30 years. The first taste you got for serving is, when you used to go to these school meetings and you wanted to be on the school board to make a difference. And one thing led to another, and here you are after 13 years being the mayor of Southfield. You are running for United States Congress. Yes. That's another, I don't know if we can use the American dream for citizens of the United States, or does the term American dream, does it only apply to immigrants? I don't know. But this is another example of the American dream. Absolutely. Where it doesn't matter who's your mom and who's your dad, where it doesn't matter how much money you came from. Yes. You can make a difference. Yes. You can make a difference. Very few people know your story about from the post office, to becoming mayor, because the last few years that you were working the post office, you were serving as mayor. Yes. That's why this businessman compared you to Batman. Yes. Yeah. Mayor by day and postal worker by night. That's very, very beautiful. Again, we have Mayor Brenda Lawrence, who is running for U.S. Congress, and she's with us for the rest of the hour. The number to call is 248-557-3300. Mayor, can we start taking some calls?
I would be glad to.
Okay. All right. Jim, I'm sorry. Okay. Let's take a call and then we'll take our very first break. Hello?
Hi, Ms. Jumana.
Yes, good morning.
Hi. Good morning, Ms. Jumana. This is Ahmed. I'm calling from D.C.
Good morning.
And it's really, really wonderful
Washington,
topic that you're
D.C.
talking. I'm sorry?
Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C., yes.
Okay, yes.
This wonderful topic that you are talking about, empowering women. And, you know, in D.C. now, the one who's prepared to be a mayor, it's a lady. And we want you to be, looks like a candidate to be a mayor in Detroit.
Well, thank you so much, Sisters Ahmed. You know, you heard what the mayor said. You can serve wherever you are. You can bloom wherever you are planted. And the key is to always help and to always help whoever is in need of help, whether as a lawyer, whether as a postal worker. I am sure, Mayor, when you were a postal worker, you did not help any less than when you became mayor. Am I right or am I right?
Absolutely right. You know,
because how you do anything is how you do everything.
Exactly.
Yep.
Just give you an example, as a letter carrier, I had a lady on my route who was blind. And so I would knock on the door every day and you know, wait for her to come, and we would talk, and I would check on her. And sometimes she would say, you know, can you pick this up and move that for me? And I became part of her day. And so you can serve whatever role you're in.
And Mr. Ahmed, who's calling from Washington, D.C., is telling us that we have if I did not misunderstand him, we have a woman running for mayor now there?
Yes.
Are you aware of that,
Yes,
Mayor?
I am. I have met her.
You have met her?
Yes.
Okay. Will she be the first to run for mayor? Will she be the first woman, let's say, to be elected?
I'm not aware of a woman ever being the mayor of Washington, D.C.
Neither am I.
I'm not quite sure of the entire history, but it has not been one in recent years.
Right. And I haven't heard either. Is Ahmed, are you still on the phone? Okay, he is gone. Yes. I think I agree with you. I don't think we have had a woman mayor there. And that would be beautiful. And we're not done talking about the small representation in Congress, whether it is in Congress or in the Senate. We're going to talk about that, but, you know, we have so much to cover, and we have more callers. We'll take the next call. Hello?
Hi, Yamana?
Yes.
This is Katana Abbott.
Hello, Katana.
Hi.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, Brenda.
Katana, so nice to hear from you.
You know, I'm so excited that Brenda's running for mayor, and I've watched her.
I'm running for Congress.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, it's early morning.
She meant that.
But I meant for the 14th Congressional District. I think that's fabulous.
Thank you, thank you.
And we need more women, and, you know, I have a radio show with my friend Vicki Travage, and she works in Rwanda. And I think I mentioned this, but I'd love to share it with the listeners, because you had mentioned in Rwanda, 50% of their parliament is women.
Yes.
And here, you know, you mentioned it's only 18%.
And I think the Senate is even less, you mentioned, Mayor.
The Senate is 20, but we are
a little
just,
more.
Yes, but we are we really need women because they're qualified women. Politics is hard. And when I say hard, I don't mean that in a way of negative, but it is different for women to stand out in public and to be publicly scrutinized and sometimes publicly attacked. And I tell women all the time, one of the greatest lessons I've learned from being in politics is how to publicly fight and debate issues, because that's not something typically women do. It's not considered feminine to go toe-to-toe on issues and to fight for issues. And, you know, it's a skill set that women attorneys, and you want to get a woman passionate about something, do something that impacts the quality of her child's life. So women will stand up for issues and women will advocate. And, you know, you can do that in politics, and we need more women to step up and do it.
Katana, why don't you tell the listeners, you know, what you do now? I'm very impressed by what you do.
Well, I retired from my financial planning practice about 7 years ago and started a nonprofit called Smart Women's Empowerment. And so our goal is to teach women, how to get smart about money and just how to stand, how to empower themselves in their lives. So we also teach them, entrepreneurship skills. So I'm really interested in this idea of right now women only earn 77 cents on the dollar for men. So what can possibly be done about that? And so what do you see as some solutions, or what can we do?
Mayor, before you, when I was a student at Yale about 18 years ago, 20 years ago, I did some women's studies. Yeah. The studies back then were that women earned in the 70s maybe 70 cents to the dollar, meaning that for every $1 that a man who was equally educated with the same number of years earned, she earned something in the 70s. And we're talking almost 20 years later, and we're still in the 70s, in the 70 cents. To me, that's really shocking. I knew the numbers, but I had to stop and realize that about 20 years ago, I did a paper on that, and it was 72 cents, 70 cents, something like that. And now it's 77 cents. And again, we're talking about a man and a woman with the same level of experience and with the same level of education. For every $1 the man earns for doing the job he is doing, the woman will earn 77 cents for that same job.
One of the things that my responsibilities when I was with the Postal Service, I was an EO investigator.
What is an EO investigator?
It's an Equal Employment Opportunity Investigator. So when there is a complaint of discrimination in the workplace, I was commissioned by the EEOC, which is a federal agency, to investigate that complaint.
Okay. That was different from you working for the Post Office.
No, that was I was working for the federal government. The Postal Service is a federal agency.
Yes.
And through that, I was trained to investigate complaints of discrimination within the Postal Service.
Okay.
And then in addition, I had the whole state of Michigan as a women's program coordinator for the federal government for the Postal Service.
Yes.
So I have been uniquely involved in parity when it comes to women and in this case in the federal government, for the United States Postal Service. Another issue that makes parity in pay so important is retirement. So if I work for 30 years and I make 77 cents, and a man works for 30 years and he makes
you're going to make less upon retirement.
Upon retirement, it continues your entire life. And so that issue of parity is attacked in a lot of different ways. One is, we look at boards of directors. We look at CEOs. We're so excited about the new CEO of GM. She is one of few. The level that women rise up in management positions is at a level that is more than 77% different. But that level of rising up and pay scales, when I investigated a complaint of discrimination where a woman said I was denied a promotion because I'm a woman, I would look at the practices of that company, and I had to prepare the case for court for it to be heard. And there was, and I'm going to give you this example. I had a man, and this is a classic example of pay equality. He was a manager, and the woman filed a complaint saying that she was not being given overtime. So I investigated her complaint, and when you investigate a complaint of discrimination, you have to show the data or the records would have to substantiate the discrimination because this is employment. And I looked at all the hours that the men were given for overtime, and they were making significantly more money
to begin with,
because the women, the overtime.
Oh, because of the overtime.
The overtime was being given to them. They were allowed to work their days off. She was not. So when I took the data that clearly showed that there was a disparity in the amount of hours and pay between the two, he said, she doesn't need overtime. These are men, and they're head of households, and they need the money. She's a single woman. She doesn't need that money. And I literally had to educate this man, and she won her case. But I had to educate him and tell him, sir, you do not get to make that decision. She is working here. If there's overtime, you must distribute it through all the employees, and you cannot deny her that. That's a clear example. They were making 20% more a year through their overtime, and she was being denied it just because she was a woman, in his belief.
By the way, do you think that happens in Europe?
Where?
In Europe.
No.
It doesn't.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't. We have some catching up to do.
Okay.
Here in the United States. Yeah. That's one of the things that I have heard you talk about. You have felt very strongly about the inequality of pay between men and women. It's very sad that we are in the year 2014 and we're still talking about women being paid less than what men do. With the same.
And those are some of those. There's a few things that I'm very passionate about. That are priorities for me. I'm going to serve and I'm going to represent the needs of this district. Pay equality for women, women rights. We must be passionate about that. Protecting our Social Security, our Medicare for our seniors. Also to make sure that we have reasonable gun control. In America, we kill more people in violent deaths through guns, illegal guns, than some countries have deaths from wars. And it's those are things that we are really fighting for.
Yes, and we want to hear you talk about each and every one, but allow us to take one or two more calls, and then we'll go into each one of these points. Jim, let's take another call. Hello.
Morning.
Good morning.
How are you, Ms. Jumana?
Very good, sir. How are you?
That's good. Jerry Hopper with you, and I want to salute you and salute Ms. Brenda, I believe, right?
Yes. The mayor of Southfield, running for U.S. Congress.
Well, congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Good luck. And
where do you live, if you don't mind me asking?
I do live in Macomb County.
Okay. So is he going to be in your district, Mayor?
No, he's not. But
It's okay. It's okay. Well,
it's okay. You can still support me.
My call to you is as a support to you.
Thank you.
My question is, if you don't mind, I will just talk to you very briefly. You are talking about the woman and the right of the woman and everything. There is a little challenge. I want to challenge you, if you don't mind, with my respect. The most powerful automakers, GM, it just was headed just a few months ago by a lady, her name, Miss Mary Barra. Correct or not?
Yes, she made history.
And this is very powerful.
Yes, it is.
Correct. So it seemed to me, the way I've been hearing from you, like the woman doesn't have completely right as a man. When we have the law protected women more than a man. Is that true or not?
Can you repeat that? We have what? More than a man?
We have most of our rules and laws.
The laws.
Support the woman, right, more than the man.
Okay, let me interrupt you here. Are you saying that you are of the opinion that here in the United States, the laws are more in favor of women than of men?
Exactly, Mr. Joanna.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm going to have the mayor address that. We occasionally have some people who believe, and quite often they are immigrants into this country.
And you know what? I will say that we have civil rights in this country. And I'll just give you a little history. women have not had the right to vote 100 years yet. The right for a woman to vote in this country was not something that was from the Constitution. It wasn't until we created the civil rights, and I will tell you, history will say, and some may debate me on this, but when I read the history, when civil rights for African Americans were being debated, it was when women joined that fight that it became one that was such a force that Congress and our laws had to be changed because women did not have the right to, it was during the war that women were actually allowed in certain employment because there were, all the men were off to war, so they allowed the women to work. There were a number of jobs that women were denied to have. We're still talking about women in the military. When you look at other countries, women have been in the military for years. We talk about how great that is that GM has appointed a woman as a CEO of that company. That company is 100 years old. 100 years old, and this is the first time they've ever had a woman to be the president. And I am excited that this country is moving forward, and we are seeing some progress. But when we just talked about other countries that 50% of their parliament are represented by women, which is reflective of their population, and here in the United States, where we're 52% of the population, and it's only 18% are making the laws for this country, that is a disparity. And so I'm not an angry woman, but I'm a woman who's very passionate and very engaged, and I want to really engage other women because I do believe that if you are just like the voice of our minorities, I feel the Hispanic, the Arab, the Jewish, the Asian voice. If we're part of this population, we should be at the table making laws, and our voices should be heard at all levels of our government.
Nor are you saying vote for me because I am primarily a woman. I've never heard you say that.
No.
Yes, you are a woman, and you are going to address women issues. That goes without saying, but I've never heard you say vote for me because I am a woman.
No, not at all. And I will tell you, being a woman, being a minority, being a man does not make you the best person for that job. But what I'm running on, I have 20 years experience from being on the school board and president of the school board, being on the city council and being president of city council and being mayor of one of the major business cities in the state of Michigan and one of the biggest in the country. And so with that experience, that's my confidence and that's my where my passion comes, that I am ready and experienced and qualified to go to Congress and and guess what? I was created a woman and I was created an African American, and with that, I'm ready to go do the work.
And I would like to remind the listeners that you're listening to Mayor Brenda Lawrence, Mayor of Southfield. She's with us for the next half hour. The number to call, the next 20 minutes, the number to call is 248-557-3300. Has been a mayor for Southfield for the past 13 years and is running for U.S. Congress. Mayor, give us the 14. We need to take a break, and then we're going to come back, and I want you to tell the listeners, number one, what do they need to do so that they can be ready to vote, and who is your district, and the format of your running.
Yes, thank you.
It was my job to save people until one night I was in a car accident. I couldn't work, and the insurance company, they fought me every step of the way. I didn't know what to do.
Call 866-YOUR-RIGHT.
I'm Jumana Kairouz. I know what it's like to be refused your right. When you call, my attorneys and I will fight to get you the compensation you deserve.
Jumana handled my medical benefits and lost wages, and she got me a settlement.
If you have been injured, call 866-YOUR-RIGHT.
للمحامية جمانة كيروز باع طويل وناجح في قضايا الإصابات الشخصية وحوادث السيارات. حيث أن مكتبها يضم أكثر من 60 موظف وباقة ضخمة من المحامين المتخصصين في هذه القضايا. سجلها يتكلم عنها، وهي التي تفوقت بإنهاء أكثر من 99% من قضايا موكليها بالنجاح الكامل الذي مكنهم من الحصول على عشرات وعشرات الملايين من الدولارات سنويا. الاستشارة مجانية، والالتزام بمصالحكم من أهم أولوياتها. للمزيد من المعلومات يرجى الاتصال بالرقم 248-557-3645 248-557-3645.
We are back, and today's date is April 1, 2014.
Yes.
So what is that, Mayor? April Fool's Day?
Yeah.
Mayor, before the break, I wanted to ask you about your congressional district. What cities does it encompass? And then equally important after that, we need to educate the listeners step by step about what they need to do to position themselves so that come November 6th, November 6th?
No, come August 5th.
August 5th is first, right?
Yes.
The primary.
Yes.
And then November 6th,
Yes.
is it? Okay. So let's start with your congressional district.
The 14th congressional district includes all 5 of the Grosse Pointes, Harper Woods, and then it comes into Detroit. And so you go from Grosse Pointe, the east side of Detroit, and you go straight down Jefferson. So in this district is the international border, the bridge. Then it goes to southwest Detroit, and then it goes north, and it crosses 8 Mile, Royal Oak Township, Oak Park, Southfield, Farmington Hills, West Bloomfield, Keego Harbor, Orchard Lake, Sylvan Lake, and Pontiac, Hamtramck, and Lathrop Village. Those are the cities that's included. This is the most diverse.
What about Bloomfield Hills?
West Bloomfield.
I know. I know.
It is the most diverse community. So in this district, I have a very large Arabic population. I have Middle Eastern population, Chaldean. I have a very large Hispanic population with Southwest Detroit and with Pontiac. I have Bangladeshi and Hamtramck. This district is 52% African American. I have one of the largest Jewish populations. And so this district has a lot of diversity of ethnicity,
economic
but also,
and otherwise.
And also, you look at some of the most wealthiest property and in the Grosse Pointes along Lakeshore Drive, and then you go to some of the most challenged communities
in Detroit.
And there are 4 cities that's under or coming out of a financial manager. Cities that have failed, and then some of the most wealthiest tax base in this district. And the reason why I feel so confident to run for this district, that as a mayor, during these tough economic times, and it's been tough these last 5 years for every city, I've been able to manage my city and take it through the tough economic times and cutting. I had to cut my workforce by 25%. I had to reduce my budget. Do more with less was, do less with less was where we were. And to be able to aid these other cities, my city remained vibrant. My city remained, I kept a balanced budget. I did not fail to provide the services, and I didn't lay off a single employee during this time.
But when you said that you reduced your workforce by 20%,
yes.
What did you mean by that? You had to lay
What
off
we
some
did
people.
is that we projected out 5 years, and we didn't know it was going to be this bad, but we saw the economic challenge coming. And so we froze our hiring. And so for 5 years, plus the 5 years we were in this, we did not fill positions. So through attrition, we were able to reduce our workforce. And because we did that and froze our hiring and start reducing costs, we were able to manage that without laying off people.
That is really, wow, that's impressive. We're talking with the mayor of Southfield, Mayor Brenda Lawrence, who is running for U.S. Congress for the 14th Congressional District. The number to call is 248-557-3300. Mayor, I have the honor of meeting with the President of the United States tomorrow.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you, Barack Obama. And I know that you have met with the President. Now, I'll be meeting with him privately for a few minutes, but I know you have met with him privately for more than a few minutes inside the White House and inside his own office multiple times. Tell us a little bit about that.
One of the things that I have been able to achieve as mayor is that we have the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and that's an organization that encompasses mayors for the entire United States. And I have risen through the ranks to become a trustee of that organization. And in that capacity,
of that national
organization, I've traveled abroad. I've traveled, and I'm invited by the government of these countries. So the King of Saudi Arabia invited me to Saudi Arabia. The government of Turkey, Azerbaijan. I have been to Israel. I have been to Jamaica and met the first woman prime minister of Jamaica. I have been to Japan. And so also the president, in doing his budget, invited about 5 to 6 mayors to his office to debate the issue of the budget. We have been invited to talk to the president about concerns and issues of cities so that we can advise him, like, this is what's important. This is what we need from our federal government to be able to sustain our cities. So I've had that good fortune, and I'm very I feel very honored to have been in that position and will continue as a congresswoman to do that.
God willing. And let me ask you, yes, Leila? Yes.
What was your impression and really about the visiting and meeting women? Maybe it's going to be a little bit conservative society.
Just to paraphrase, because some of her question was off the air, Leila's asking the mayor about her impression from visiting Saudi Arabia, and particularly her impression of women there, to the extent that, you know, your visit wasn't very limited and very concise.
It was an exciting time because the King Abdullah had just given women the right to vote, had spoken on the floor of Parliament that he declared that women would have the right to vote and to hold office. And so this was 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. It was so exciting because the women there were so excited. And I visited the Women University in Saudi Arabia and watched the women being educated. I visited the all-women mall where the women had their own mall. And so we met with a civil rights group that were advocating for rights of women. And, you know, women cannot drive in Saudi Arabia. And I found that to be such an issue. And I asked, why aren't you fighting for the right to vote? And they told me that they have the priority and the right to vote and to put women as judges, to put women in positions where they would be able to speak for their rights. Women, and that was more important. And one lady, she laughed. She said, I don't particularly mind being chauffeured.
That's a cute one. So in essence, they were saying that, you know, we cannot get all of our rights overnight, and we have to lay out our priorities.
Yes.
Okay. Mayor, let me ask you, what is the number one quality that you find in women in positions of leadership? I mean,
the number
you know, we do business
yeah.
a little differently. And
yes.
What's your opinion?
I call it confidence, a sense of self. A lot of women suppress their power. They don't own it and embrace it. And it does not mean that you're abrasive. It does not mean that you're disrespectful. It does not mean that you don't remain what my grandmother used to call a lady. It means knowing your power. It means recognizing that I am a complete being. I have ideas. I have a thought process. I can make a difference. I don't have to ask permission. And my grandmother always told me you get more with honey than you can with vinegar. And she also told me that I was to stand up any time that there was some inequity or there was a wrong. If I was there, I should speak up about it. I should be part of fixing it and stopping people from hurting other people. And so I've seen leadership that, and you can have leadership. If you are, I give you an example. If you're in a community and you see someone hungry and that person doesn't have a job and they have children and you know they're hungry, leadership is finding a way for that family to get a job or to get food, going to a local food bank, going to that person, asking what they need. That's leadership. Or you can just sit on the sideline and say, oh, that person is starving to death. That's really bad.
So part of leadership for you is substance, not form.
No.
Right. One of the qualities that I find in women leaders is they're very much to the point. You know,
yes.
They don't meander. They just give it to you as it is, and they just cut to the chase. And I find that that's not often the case with many men leaders.
Yeah.
You know, so to speak.
To me, a leader, I use this analogy. You are not a leader if no one's following you. You cannot be a leader unless you are making a difference. A leader is not a person that follows the path that everyone else has traveled, and a leader is a person that takes a different route, and that route is leading somewhere. And so you'll see people who just follow, or people, if I have to step out by myself, because being a leader means that you are now in front, and sometimes you are, when you're leading, you're alone. People are following you, but you are alone. And a lot of people are uncomfortable with that. But a true leader understands the impact of their decisions. They actually understand that I am put here for a reason. They step up and take on the responsibility.
And we're being told we have many calls, so we're going to take the next one. Okay. Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, how are you, Mrs. K. Ruse?
Very good, sir.
It's a pleasure to speak with you, and this is Lawrence.
Hello, how are you?
Hello, it's an honor to speak with you, ma'am. I'm a college student, and I grew up in Detroit district. Currently, I work with Detroit patients all the time, and as you know, the situation there is beyond a disaster. Can I just know, so I can tell them every time I speak with them, what are you planning to do that all these other politicians have promised and have done?
Right. And I wish you'd talk about gun control and your opinions on that as well, Mayor.
Yes, of course.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you. Thank you so much for calling in and being a young person. That means a lot to me. Tell me again, you said every day, what do you do in the city?
I pick up patients that don't have a car to go to the clinic.
Okay. So you are really ingrained or involved in the community. I want to tell you that the first step to improving the city of Detroit will be recognizing the problems, caring enough to fix them. I had a philosophy, and I discussed this with Mayor Bing. The city of Detroit, if I were mayor, I would divide it into quadrants or into sections and fix everything in that section. I would fix police response. I would fix code enforcement, picking up the litter, tearing down the abandoned houses, making sure that abandoned cars and things that are outlined and the ordinances of the city are enforced, then I would really engage in developing neighborhood associations and supporting, bringing people together to take ownership of their community. And you start there. You start addressing the crime. When I say when someone calls 911, someone is responding. And if there are some things that are broken in the city and their processes, and there has to be the sense that someone cares. And I will tell you, when I campaign in some of the areas of Detroit where there is obviously blight and there's obviously, it looks like abandonment of that community, people have adopted the philosophy, seem to have gone to, no one cares. You know, I'm excited about Mayor Duggan being there. Mayor Duggan has to show and gain the trust of the people by doing what he says. He is taking a very analytical approach to government in Detroit. But people are going to have to start trusting the politicians they elect by holding them accountable. And politicians, and I'm one of them, I want you to look at my record. I keep my word. I work hard. I'm accessible. You know, there's times when you have to come and sit in the chair of the person in that community, like you're picking up patients. They don't have cars. We must improve our transportation in the city of Detroit. It is criminal. If I am at an income where I cannot afford a car, that I am treated as a second-class citizen. Those buses should be on time. They should be clean, and they should be running on a regular schedule. There are people who have to get up 4 hours in advance just to get to work because they don't know if the bus is going to be on time, and that's something government controls. So what we need to do is keep our word. We need to identify the issues, and as elected officials, all of them. I know the new president of the city council, Ms. Jones, she's very passionate about having the council address those issues in the community. Mayor Duggan has shown me nothing, but he is committed to making Detroit a better place. And I want the public to know that you hold your elected officials accountable and don't give up. It's your home, and I want to be your congresswoman from a federal perspective. I have a section of Detroit that I'll be representing, and I'm going to get every possible resource that we have to make sure it comes into Detroit to address those issues.
So that's your commitment when you become Congresswoman, to help Detroit and bring in federal funds to help the city.
Yes.
Very nice.
Thank you for your call.
Thank
Mayor,
you very much.
Thank you, sir. And it's beautiful that some young person was
Yes.
listening to us and calling with feedback. We have less than a minute. I want you to address gun control. Can you do it in 45 seconds?
Yes, I just want to say that one of the priorities of mine is having closing that loophole. You can have a restraining order. You can be a felon, and you can go to a gun show and buy a gun. And we should not have that ability to just walk into a gun show and buy a weapon, because it has been shown that those individuals commit crimes. And so we need to close that gap. I am 100% in support of having the right to own a gun. I will stand with any American and fight for their right to own a gun legally, but there are cases where the gun checks that we have in place in the United States are not, there's loopholes, and people are being able to acquire guns and do bad things.
So what's
with them.
the solution?
The solution is to close that if you buy a gun, regardless if it's at a gun store or at a gun show, that you have to have a background check and you have to go through the same procedure regardless.
Mayor Brenda Lawrence, our time is up. Time flew by.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We thank you for coming, Mayor Brenda Lawrence, Mayor of Southfield for 13 years, beloved Mayor of Southfield for the past 13 years, candidate for U.S. Congress.
Yes.